Would you take that on the chin that people are getting a lot of the forecasting wrong?
Well, if we get it wrong, so like, my prior job as an FX strategist, like
yes.
we've got it down God knows how many times. But ultimately,
we cut that bit about Jeffrey saying you got it wrong so many times.
Absolutely, right.
Sergio,
it's all for, but it should be public knowledge. And but ultimately, I think right now up ahead, it's. The Prime Minister talked about binary outcomes. The market still tends to think in binary outcomes, up or down. So it's important to look at scenario analysis right now. Have a core scenario, but also know what happens, how to actually react when the core analysis, when your core scenario actually doesn't play out, which didn't seem to be the case after Brexit because the government, didn't really have a plan. So I think these are issues both for the politicians, forecasters, central bankers should all take into account.
But the government not having a plan, and again, I'm just looking at so far. I'm looking backwards. I'm not looking forwards, and I think I agree there is all kinds of issues going forwards. But looking backwards, not having a plan didn't hurt the British economy in many ways. I know the pound's gone down, so that's hurting colleagues amongst mine who go on these schmancy foreign holidays. But for the rest of us, actually, it hasn't been too bad so far. And as the retailers have said, they're going to protect us against the impact of inflation. So where is the negativity so far? Well,
the negativity is still in terms of forward expectations on the business side rather than consumer side. When you actually have an economy which is largely consumer driven and it's still not really seeing any discernible impact from what has materialized and still is still waiting for fresh news, then that should actually be enough to keep an economy going. Now, I think the trick here actually to prevent the downside is to see how do you use the inflation coming through? That's as relevant for the UK and for the US. If it can actually translate into some better pricing power and also translate into higher wages, what the Japanese have been trying to achieve for the last 5 to 10 years, if not longer, then we can actually mitigate the impact further. But the risk right now is we see a Willy Coyote moment and expectations are nothing's going to happen, but then suddenly, oh dear, there's no floor. Then we have a problem. But that's not our core scenario.
Let's talk about the levels today, because Steve's idea of going glamping might look great at about 120.
Wrong bit of glamping, Karen.
And we're not far
Some of the biggest CEOs in Britain go
121.
glamping, apparently.
The levels today, it's almost as though there's been another fresh trigger or catalyst, because we're not travelling too far off the lows on sterling dollar. What do you think the psychology is right now in trading sterling dollar?
So again, is it a dollar story or is it a sterling story? So if we have a look
at... It looks like a sterling story this morning, doesn't it?
It is. So again, I think when we compare this to the statements which came out before and during the conference, during the party conference, I think that's the best comparison at this point. So the fear right now is if we don't get the right deal, for the economy, or if it's veering towards a hard Brexit, I think that's where the risk premium is in.
Why today? Why are we seeing this sort of move today?
So I still think there is a dollar component there if you compare to, I would say, a relatively robust reaction to Friday's numbers, but on the back of the Prime Minister's comments, and also you want to be somewhat defensive heading into March. So we haven't had any event risk for sterling for quite a while now, and we actually do think triggering of Article 50 is probably the next somewhat binary event risk. If we get it right, then probably we can see actually a structural upward move. If we do get it wrong, then a downward move. But again, those would be areas, given the valuations, where we get back into going long sterling again.
So the market's just basically preparing for Article 50.